Just a brief word on response to Mitch. Again, all I can do is look at the law that we passed and read the words in the law. And it's very clear on the point that Mitch made, which is hardship is timing. Timing is the hardship. This law says timing cannot be considered a hardship, either in putting an application in or having your application stalled by the moratorium. It's not a hardship, cannot be considered a hardship, and that was his definition tonight for this hardship. So it's not proven with what has been presented to this board tonight.
Excuse me, Bill Millington. I live in Chatham Center, and I hesitate to make such naive comment as I'm about to make after all these erudite supports for this waiver. I was a strong supporter of the moratorium. I thought the moratorium was put in place to resist and to think about development that was not in the character of the town, not in the character of the town personally I wanted to live in. But if that moratorium is extended so that it blocks anyone from doing anything interesting, creative, timely, then it seems to me that Chatham is going to stay in the past. And we need to be able to support young people, need to be able to support creative endeavors, need to be flowing with the time into the future. And I know that doesn't speak specifically to the law, but it does speak specifically to the town that I personally want to live in. And I want to see young farmers being successful and doing new and creative things, and that'll put Chatham on the map. Thank you.
If there are no other comments.
Can I just ask Mitchell one question?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
We've been working, as you can imagine, like dogs, trying to get this finished. But one of the things in the keep farming section of the comprehensive plan is it does state that if you're a farmer, they do other things, that the farming is primary and the other things are subordinate. So what's going on here is the farm primary, or is the retreat primary?
So, as I said, the farm is primary. No, we can easily answer that. The farm is primary. It'll be most of the property. It's the reason why they bought that property. But they wanted to add on the educational aspect. I forgot how many people you told me you were going to employ.
I don't know the answer yet, but
Oh,
probably.
okay. 6. So I think what they're looking for is it's going to be a farm. It's going to be an organic farm, by the way. I don't think I said that. They do want to sell wholesale to restaurants local, to shops local. And on top of that, they want to bring people, they have strong connections to the city. They want to bring people up, as you know, you'll see, and if you want, I'll leave this with you. There's just an incredible movement and many, many organizations that are now literally have endeavors of where they're bringing up urban people into rural communities so they can learn about farming. And it's something that's growing, growing, and growing, and there are many, many different institutions. They want to follow that mode with the people that they know, specifically on the herbal side. They're not intending to have animals there. As far as I know, we're certainly not going to be corn harvesting, large acres. So, as I said last time, I do believe that under the right to farm, they may not even need approval. And that's a decision that I'll make with them, depending on what this board does. They want to be good neighbors. They want to give an opportunity to their neighbors to have some input. So they're willing to go through this process. And all we're doing is asking tonight for you to make a decision to allow that process to start so they could flush all that stuff out.
Thank you, Mitch.
I just want to say to my neighbors, we would love to sit with you and talk with you about this. We want you to be happy. We want you to feel comfortable. We want to be great neighbors to you. So we would love to dialogue outside of this room together. Thank you.
The fact that it's a for-profit, basically, so it's kind of like a farming hotel is kind of what it sounds like to me. So
Retreat. That's
farming. Still, people are coming in and paying money to stay in these units on the property, so I can understand why the people on the road may be concerned about traffic coming in and out, because it's not exactly like once they're there, they stay there and don't, let's face it, people are in and out, so maybe the idea that there's going to be, 12 additional cars up and down the road, I mean, how can you actually enforce that? You really can't. So, I mean, I think that really needs to be taken into consideration. I mean, the point of the moratorium was to protect the dirt roads, and I really, if you're granting hardships, I don't really see how that's in the spirit of the moratorium.
Thank you, Hannah. All right, if there aren't any more comments, I'd like to close this public hearing. Deputy at 7:40. Again, the meeting is going to continue, so if you're going to leave, please do it quickly and quietly. You're next.
We've got all but one of the writing.
Okay.
I've read your report carefully and I'm very concerned.
Okay.
No, I gotta go to the dad.
Do you want me to allow the Let me get the one. Okay.
I'd like
I don't want to
to
blind you.
introduce,
They have to come down.
tonight I'd like to introduce Steve Winkler. Steve has been very cooperative because he was here at 6 o'clock and we expected to have him on the agenda a little earlier, but he's volunteered to be here. Steve is a hydrogeologist and he's from the source water protection. He's a source water protection specialist and he's from the New York Rural Water Association. He has been working for years on our plan and he sits here quietly in the town hall for hours at a time putting together this plan. I want to say that I want to recognize Steve for all of your dedication on working on this and providing this information to the town, which is extremely important. And we are asking that our planner consider that this be part of our common plan. So we're going to go through this very quickly.
Very quickly. Yep. And I ask if you do like it, and if you, I'm here tonight to answer some questions. Just go over the real highlights of it. Bob, this isn't a report, by the way. That's not the report.
Oh, this is the wrong one. Hang on. No, I got it. I got it.
It's just testing you.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
I got it.
Source water protector.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay.
Only got about 1,000 documents.
I'm going to just shrink it down to the page fit. Maybe it's right up there. Up there where it says 81 and 79. Should zoom the page level.
Command minus will work, Bob.
There we go. That's fine. So, long story short, we are a nonprofit. We are federally funded. So, if you like us, please write my boss because our funding is through the USDA, which was proposed to be cut, zeroed out in the budget. So my funding may not be there next year. But anyway, we're a nonprofit, and we work with communities like Chatham on drinking water protection, and our funding has been kind of uneven, so it's one of the reasons I've been kind of working in Chatham. So, but you mentioned East Chatham, in the Hamlet area. Many years ago, we were involved with an effort to actually bring water to the hamlet of East Chatham. Nothing materialized, but we recognize the point. There are areas in Chatham with less than ideal water. So water is a very important thing. If we can just kind of slide along there, Bob, to the first figure maybe. There we go. So basically what I've done here in Chatham is just just go up. Just go up one figure, just the arrow there. No, the arrow there. Up arrow. There you go. There you go. Okay, so, yeah. So basically, Chatham is basically, we talked a lot tonight about East Chatham area. I looked at the whole town of Chatham. I'm a hydrogeologist, so Chatham is a really interesting geologic area. I won't bore you to tears about that, but hey, you want to have an outdoor education facility, Chatham is a great place for that. From a geological point of view, very interesting geology here in Chatham. Next picture, that's what this shows. Next one down. And we're going the wrong direction. Oops, there you go. So land use, these are slopes. For example, I mapped out slopes in Chatham. We'll go down to the next one. This is a real overview. If anyone's interested in looking at the plan, I gave a copy to Maria, and I'm sure you could put a post to it online of some sort. This is a geologic map of Chatham. Chatham is a very complex geology. There's a number of faults that run through Chatham. Actually, you have a fault named after your town. It's called the Chatham Fault. It runs right through the town. You don't have to worry. You're not going to slide into the ocean or anything. They're not really active faults, but they do have some control on where you get your water from. So we can go down.
Could you find out where the fault is?
What's that?
Could you find out where the fault is?
Well,
Or it's not that easy?
This is based on, these are the dark red lines here. Basically, you can see where the faults are based on the landscape. So I actually mapped out where you have what we call linear features on the landscape are actually where we call fault traces. So you can actually map out where faults are. Okay, so let's see. This is a map of what we call surficial materials. Kind of like soils, but they're actually a little deeper and have more of a water. We're interested in water-bearing characteristics. So we mapped all the surficial materials in the town of Chatham. You can go down to the next figure here. This is a map of watersheds. We've mapped all the watersheds in detail in Chatham. Next one here. My funding is actually from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, but actually it's to protect public water systems. And you say, well, the town of Chatham actually doesn't have its own water system. I mean, the village does, but the town of Chatham doesn't have its own water district. There's actually a number of public water systems in Chatham. There's a number of mobile home parks, for example, and they're all considered public water systems. So as long as a community has public water systems, I can work there. So that's how I'm able to work in Chatham. Next slide. Next picture, I should say. This is an important one to look at. This is a breakdown of yields of wells. Roughly about 82–83% of the wells in Chatham come from the rock. So most of you, if you're from Chatham, get your water from the bedrock, or what I'm from New England, we call it ledge. If you're from New England or Massachusetts, you might call it ledge. This is a histogram of the yields. You can see basically that roughly about half of them yield less than 5 gallons per minute. 5 gallons per minute is significant because that is what usually a bank requires for a mortgage. So what that tells you is that in every other situation, it may be problematic to possibly find enough water to get a mortgage in Chatham. So it might be something that's planning board or zoning board might want to know before they plan for an approval. Next picture then. We often have these projects in mind. I heard projects, but a lot of times the well goes in after everything else is planned, and sometimes we don't have the water that we thought we had. So sometimes I encourage people, plan out water ahead of time. Make sure you have enough water, first of all. So what I've done here in Chatham is broken the town by all these different geologic formations, what the median or average well yields are. And all I want to bore you to death about here is that there's one particular rock formation, and it's a Dutch name called the Walloomsik Formation. Only a geologist would care what that name is. Bob, we can go down to the next slide, I'll show where that is. Well, roughly it's this area of the town here. This corner of the town here has lower than average yields. That particular formation, the well yields are less than 5 gallons per minute on average. And the reason is because of that type of rock is a very, we call fissile. It's a very fragmented rock. It breaks up easily. It's not surprising the East Chatham area is a problematic area for water historically. Next slide. This is a picture of what we call unconsolidated aquifers, or sand and gravel aquifers. And for example, these are the type of aquifers that the village of Chatham has their wells in. That most communities that have their own water supply in Columbia County have their wells in. So, and so these are the highest yielding wells, and there are a number of wells here. You can't see them too well, but there are some really high yielding wells in these aquifers in Chatham. They're just privately owned, maybe farms, some businesses perhaps. But they're definitely in certain areas, North Chatham, Chatham Center, certain areas. They follow the creeks pretty much. Next slide. So part of what I have to do in this program is I have to identify potential sources of contamination. The good news is there really aren't too many regulated environmental sources of contamination, which is probably why people love Chatham so much and want to live here, because there isn't a whole lot here, right? So next slide, we'll move on down. This is a picture, this is a very interesting picture. And again, all this is available, and if you're interested, I can get you a much better copy. This is what we call land cover. This is actually based on satellite imagery, and it's broken the town into, it's the last available, which was 2011. I don't know if we're going to have funding to update it again, but because it's one of those programs that's probably going to go away. But anyway, I won't politicize anymore, I'm sorry.
It's okay, we feel your pain.
But you can see it's mostly green, so it's mostly pasture and hay and forest, and so I've broken that up by watersheds, etc. It's in the plan. 55% of the town is forested. I don't have to tell you this. 20, these are, you know your town better than I do. So I've talked about what are potential sources of issues present now. We can just kind of slide ahead. And then I look at, this is what we call hydrogeologic sensitivity. These are, what I've tried to do is, okay, I've tried to predict in the future what are areas that, if they were to be developed, would have the highest risk of actually contamination, like a Hoosick Falls type event or something like that. If you remember Hoosick Falls and you're in the news, right? So we don't want something like that to occur, but you can look at the red, and I always use red. Those are areas of higher sensitivity, for example. So we'll go down to the next. And what I've done is some calculations on how large an area you need to make sure that, because everything in Chatham is on septics and individual wells, and which is fine. I have that at home too, my house. But we just have to make sure that we don't have too many in a given area. And if we have too many wells or too many septic systems and they're interfering with one another, we could have some issues. So I did some calculations based on what we call recharge rates, and came up with some minimum areas for that.
What does zero mean?
Zero means it's basically a wetland or an open water body, so you wouldn't want to develop there anyway. So basically it was in my calculation, I couldn't calculate it.
So are those recharge rates, is that what?
It's in my report. They're based on recharge rates, yeah. Those are recharge rates. Those are recharge rates. So the recharge everywhere from zero, like if you're a pond, you're not going to have any groundwater recharge. And it's anywhere from, we get maybe, what do we get? Maybe 40 something inches of rainfall, snow melt a year. Up to almost half of that gets into the ground. Anywhere from 9 to 20 inches gets into the ground in Chatham. So I mapped that based on a lot of that time, Maria, that I was in here, I was crunching numbers. I was calculating these numbers. So we can go down. What is this figure? This is, I won't bore you, but I looked at the existing zoning, which I know is in the process of changing, right? And looked at what the available housing density is and what my calculations say it maybe should be, and kind of compared the two. And so I have some recommendations. And so I have some recommendations in my plan that discuss that. And then I go through and talk about some protection strategies. We can go up one. Oops. Yeah. Basically, I'm talking about, this is very timely for the zoning, what do you call yourselves? The
Comprehensive Plan Implementation Group.
Okay, whatever that is.
Ad hoc.
Ad hoc. Whatever, as you change the zoning or potentially change the zoning, I have some recommendations also on groundwater protection. And some of them affect zoning, some are recommendations on zoning, some are recommendations on subdivision, some are on site plan. They're just my recommendations, all right? So, and so, for what they're worth, these are things I've done throughout the state. I work throughout the state of New York, done them in a variety of communities. In New York, we do have separation distances now, minimum, from various contamination sources. So please keep those in mind. You do have a code enforcement officer. They should be enforcing those. That is actually now state public health law. A lot of towns don't realize that, but they should be on your site plans and all that. Make sure that you are observing those distances, separation distances. So I'm trying to think of the. So I have some recommendations on some zoning, on some land use things, and then we have some general recommendations, which again I'd be glad to work with. The town's consultant, Nan Stolzenberg, I've worked years with on various towns throughout Capital District mainly. So I won't keep you anymore, but you know, I just kind of wanted to touch base, and Ray asked me to come. So I've probably been more than 10 minutes, but any other questions?
Any questions?
I know you got a lot on your mind tonight. So.
Randy, you have questions?
Okay. Yeah.
As a fellow scientist, I really appreciate your recommendations. So I think it's important for us to recognize that you are approaching this from a scientific background, that you've done a lot of research, crunched the numbers, and know the surficial geology. I did get a chance to take a look at this before, so it came at a perfect time for us. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. I mean, I haven't heard, water resources just honestly one issue of many, but at least from my point of view, it's an issue that comes up a lot in rural.
It's just water.
It's just.
It needs it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Steve, and if you need to leave, please feel free. Any other questions for Steve? Okay, thank you, Bob, for setting this up for us as well.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Will the report be made available to?
It is available.
It is available right now?
It's on Nan Stolzenberg's website.
Oh, okay.
Which is a link from the town website.
And there's a link from the town.
Is there?
to-
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
At least I'll check and make sure it's available.
Okay. Again, thank you, Steve, we very much appreciate it.
And one thing, Maria, I hope this is, if you are happy with the report,
I'll write your book.
you can write my boss
I
a
will.
letter. And that will go to our local representative.
We'll do it. I promise we'll get to that very soon.
I can't lobby.
I understand. Thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is Chatham Brewing and Brewing Cycling, the application for their special event use permit to permit alcohol at Crowley Park on May 21st from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I distributed the application to the town board and to Attorney. There was only one item that was, I felt, not complete, and that was a list of the servers and bartenders and the plans for security. So I have asked for that information.
So what's included, Maria?
But I think we need a little more specificity.
Okay.
You talk about yourself and a couple of other people, but I think we need to, we're going to have more than that, and who's going to provide the security. So,
Could you want to respond to that? I mean, typically when we've done in the past, it has been just myself bartending with also one other employee of the brewery. Because the way the event works is riders trickle in over the span of 3 or 4 hours,
so it's
get
not
their
like
complimentary
everybody-
beer, they get and leave. And as far as, so the site plan, would be using that rear pavilion, and we'd have a Mike West that he would work with to sort of designate an area around adjacent to that, which would be sort of the beer garden, if you were. And so access to that would be controlled through, an entrance and an exit, which only people 21 or over, which the majority of people who participate are, will be allowed in. So that
Do you have any security people there?
we haven't had any need to in the past. The USA Cycling has a couple dozen volunteers who work the event in terms of directing parking, etc. But beyond that, it's as John Stillman mentioned, the March event. It's mostly a more mature crowd who, as I said, come have their beer, maybe have a little something to eat, and go on their way. So we'd be happy to talk with you more about what you envision is needed by additional security.
Yeah, the resolution calls for security. So, we're talking about professional.
Well, it just depends on the nature of it. If you're going to have, a picnic, and it's 3 hours long, it's one thing. It's going to be all day, which is what this is. It may be.
The all-day nature is the nature of the event. The cycling, they come and register at 7. There's not alcohol being served, obviously at 7 in the morning. It's post.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, so it's because I guess it's the way your application prints out.
I was going to do my first bike ride ever.
The application, the way Mike gives it, the application is for use of the park.
Okay.
And so we're using the park from 7 a.m. till later in the evening. And then alcohol is provided as once races finish. So the race starts at 9. The fastest guys, the time to race the ride, will do their 100 kilometers in about 4 hours. So starting around 1 o'clock, and then they're cleaned up and out of there. Usually by 7 o'clock in the evening.
So how many people are the most that will be there at once? I guess when they're
Well, at the start there's 400.
right,
And then afterwards,
the drinking part.
they're trickling in, so maybe 100 at the maximum, and a lot of that's sort of weather dependent. Like last year it was very cold, so people didn't really linger at all. They were frozen after the ride.
It's tough for you to bartend and supervise in case there's.
Well, like I said, so there's Andy Reason and John Stillman, who was here at the last two, they organize the event, and they have a couple dozen volunteers who assist with parking those roles haven't been assigned yet, so I can't really give you names of who those volunteers are, because they haven't,
Well, you don't have to do it right
we're
now.
so far out in terms of,
Just before the.
who they'd be.
event.
So yeah, I mean, I have to talk to you about what you're
Okay.
looking for, so we can comply with
All right.
what you want in terms of security and supervision.
Okay. Did the board have any questions for Tom? Sarah prepared a resolution. So, I'll read the resolution and see what the first. Now, this is resolution number 77 in 2017, whereas the town board of the town of Chatham has determined that alcohol may be served under limited conditions at property owned by the town known as Crown Park under a special use permit procedure adopted by the town. And whereas Chatham Brewing LLC and the U.S. Cycling Inc. have requested a town board special event use permit for use of alcohol at Crown Park on May 21st, 2017 from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. have provided all the necessary information under the Crown Park use form, including copies of the New York State liquor license, certificates of insurance, deposit of $1,000, use fee of $250 for the cycling event to be held on May 21st, 2017. Now, therefore be it resolved that the application for permission to serve alcohol at Crown Park on May 21, 2017, under the terms of the application for the cycling event, is hereby granted in all aspects, and the supervisor is authorized to issue a special use event permit in the form annexed to this resolution. So, if I have a
Second.
motion by Haber, seconded by Dodd. Any other discussion?
Just one, I was originally opposed to the alcohol in the park due to a lot of people that have spoke against it. But now that it is a accepted use for the park and they've met all the criteria that we've put in front of them, at this point I don't have any objections to going to approve. I just want to explain them something and say, well, why'd you flip-flop? It's not so much flip-flopping, it's just that there was a lot of people that spoke against it. So I felt at that time I was speaking for those people who were against it. And now that it's an accepted use, and there's rules in place for it that we're going to accept, so at that point, that's why now I'm going to vote in favor of allowing this.
Okay. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Just in respect to that, Henry, I think that the people who signed that petition, they went through all the, were here and saw all the discussion that we did and how thoughtful we were on our approach, that probably many of them would have changed their minds.
And I think that that petition named a specific organization, and it was very specific for that criteria.
But I appreciate what you're...
There was, we may think that, but a lot of people were concerned about alcohol and the children being together. I think that's been resolved. I think we've properly taken care of it. So I'm just stating why I'm voting the way I am tonight. So I just feel more comfortable doing that.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I do it every year. Well,
There's some of it every year.
oh, okay, great. I'll get it up.
Okay, I think that brings us to the conclusion of our town business, and what I would like to do is ask for a motion for executive session for attorney-client consultation.
Second.
And just a brief discussion, when we come out of that meeting, we may possibly make a decision, so I'm hoping maybe we will, so maybe the attorneys may want to stick around.
Thank you.
I don't know.
I mean, you know,
Well, there's possibility.
Yeah, there's a possibility, yeah.
so
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see us all leave.
Okay, we're going to go into executive session, so I'm sorry I have to.
But we will be back.
Stay tuned.
What happened?